What's up, guys? Hey, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Berardo podcast. We're going to be doing this via YouTube as well. So if you're just listening to this, make sure you pop back to the episode that you saw, and I'll leave a link to watch it on YouTube. And then if you're watching me on YouTube, I'll leave a link to make sure you're listening on your phone. So thanks for tuning in. Today's episode should be kind of a deeper episode than what I'm used to doing. If you haven't noticed, I am much thinner because I was in the hospital for about a week almost, and I just got out about 4 or 5 days ago. So I wanted to kind of do a podcast and talk about my experience and me dealing with quote unquote Crohn's disease, which is what I was diagnosed with, but who the hell knows anymore. So let's get into it.
You're just funny. It's funny, the way you tell the story and everything.
Funny how?
Come here, look. Yeah, he's crazy, see? Who are you?
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Are you ready?
All right, so again, guys, thanks so much for tuning in. This is a lot different than my other podcasts. This is episode 31, so it's exciting because we're creeping up on the 50 mark. I'm very excited. There's a lot of people I'm going to be interviewing, and there's a lot of you that have reached out to me wanting to interview, so I have not forgotten about you. So I've kind of gone back and forth on this, ever since I started a podcast. I wanted to start it mainly on social media, trending topics, how to do a podcast, how to be a better human being, saving money, trending topics, health, wellness, just a combination of stuff that I'm passionate about. But more importantly, I kind of want to make it an interview podcast. Hopefully you guys can laugh, have a good time, learn from the person on the other side of the desk. So that's kind of the goal of the podcast, and still remains to be the goal. But I always wanted to kind of touch base a little bit about my Crohn's on one of the episodes, and unfortunately, I was put in the hospital last week for an episode, and I went a whole year without any issues at all, and ever since I went plant-based. And yeah, so I figured, hey man, I got out of the hospital. Let me go ahead and talk about it on a podcast. And it's still a little. I don't want to say I'm not self-conscious about it, because I feel like I'm going to correct it and I'm going to fix it. And I think I have tools in place to do so. But, I didn't know 6 years ago that I had any stomach issues. I went in the hospital a couple times because I was having a lot of cramps and constipation, and couldn't go to the bathroom or anything like that. So, every time I went to the doctor or the hospital, they would give me, like laxatives and tell me what to eat and all this bullshit that they would feed me. And, I'd be good for a couple months, and then I'd go to the hospital again. And then eventually, one time when I was out in Vegas, which I definitely didn't eat and drink correctly out in Vegas. This was going back almost 4 years ago. But I got so ill and sick that they wouldn't even let me fly to go back home. I was stuck in Vegas, and they had to grab an ambulance and an ambulance. They had to grab an ambulance and actually take me from the Las Vegas airport. Ended up staying in Vegas for a week in the hospital, and that was probably about 4 years ago. So when I got back to Florida, I got a specialist, and they did the whole scope and all that jazz right up my keister, and I was 30 years old at the time. Actually, I think I was 30 years old at the time, maybe 29. So not even 30 yet, and I had to scope up my keister. Not okay. But, apparently they found traces of Crohn's disease, which, if you don't know, there's a lot of different instances of Crohn's. Mine's very rare. My Crohn's disease, or what they think is Crohn's disease, is essentially your intestines, right? Almost a mile long. A lot could go wrong in there. But your immune system pretty much lives in your intestines. Everything inside there will dictate what the rest of your body does. It's very important that you take care of it. So that's why what we put in our body is extremely important, which is why I like to talk about it. And apparently the last 8 inches of my intestine is completely fucked up. Like it's scarred. It's, it's just really messed up. There's a lot of inflammation all the time, 24/7. And eventually it could, happen every month. It could happen once a year, twice a year, but eventually it just completely swells up, totally shuts down, and nothing goes in, nothing goes out. So everything that is left inside there is just hanging out. And if you know anything about the immune system, if you're all built up like that, there's a lot of issues that can cause from it. You can get, a lot of bacterial infections, obviously nausea, fever, 1,000 other things that's wrong with that. So usually what happens is every time I have that incident happen, they end up having to put a tube down my throat and suck out all the deliciousness that's in there. So it's pretty aggressive. It's very invasive, and that's why I'm so thin, is because I can't really eat a whole lot. I mean, I lost almost 20 pounds. It's insane. If you go to my Instagram profile, which of course I'll leave the link there so you can check that out, like some photos. But if you go there, you'll definitely see that my arms were 1,000 times bigger. And it's not because I was doing push-ups before I took a picture. It's just because I haven't been able to eat. I'm on soft foods and liquids still because I got to get a bunch of testing done. But that's usually what happens. So it's been rough. It's been a rough last couple of years. So, when I was out in Vegas, and like I said, I came back and I got tested, and they told me I had that. They put me on a little bit of treatment, some meds, apparently to treat Crohn's disease, but it wasn't working because I was still having these issues. Still ended up in the hospital. You can't just go to the doctor for the stuff. They gotta put you on an IV and all that jazz. So about 2 years ago, I decided, you know what? Fuck this shit. I'm just going to go ahead and cut out everything I can out of my diet. And that's when I went full vegan. I didn't have any dairy. I pretty much looked up everything that could cause intestinal issues, and I cut that out of my diet, which was meat, dairy, all that stuff that tastes so fucking good. But I cut all that out. So once I did that, I thought I was good. I got off my meds, so I haven't had any medication in 2 years almost, to the day. I'm still not taking meds. Fuck that. But I haven't had any medication. And everything was good. And then, man, last weekend, I don't know what it was. I don't even know, because I don't even drink that much anymore. I'll have the occasional wine or something like that a couple times a week, but that's not alcohol. I might have a cup of coffee every day, just one. And there's no way I'm cutting that out. I don't know what I'm going to do if I can't have coffee. But I don't know what happens. I woke up one day and I just was not feeling it. And I looked at my wife and I was like, I think something's coming. She's like, yeah? I was like, yeah. But, usually I can maintain it. Usually I can just maybe like juice or give my intestines a little bit of break, have some water, relax, throw a heating pad on. Usually it just kind of calms down. You know what I mean? But this got worse. It got really bad. It usually gets to the point to where I feel it and I got about 6 hours. And I know once that 6 hour mark happens, it's the point of no return. It's like I got to be in the hospital. I can't be in the car on the way to the hospital. I have to be in the hospital. That's usually the point that I know, and I felt that. And I tried to power through just because I didn't believe it, to be honest with you. I just looked at myself where I've been so strict with my eating, my fitness, I'm not drinking, literally, because that causes a lot of inflammation too. I cut that out drastically. I'm not even doing, when I do drink, I don't do any whiskey or dark liquor, which was my shit. So I cut that out completely. So it's almost like, what else do I have to do, right? Because medicine, even for Crohn's or a lot of diseases, it just prolongs it. There's no cure for Crohn's, just like there's no cure for a lot of different chronic diseases out there. So to me, I'm thinking, okay, so as long as it's not getting worse, which it hasn't, medication isn't really going to do anything, right? If it's getting worse, then I need to take meds. But in the past couple of years, it hasn't gotten worse. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, no meds, I'm doing good, I'm feeling good, everything's good. And then all of a sudden last week, it just got to the point to where my stomach gets just like swelled up. Like how it is now. Okay, it's flat. It's because I don't have anything in there. But usually I get completely full. My stomach gets about 8 inches out. No exaggeration. It gets massive. And then it's this sharp, uncontrollable pain that there's no way to describe. I'm sure women that have had babies think this is not that bad. But I'm telling you, it's almost like, okay, it's worse than having an alien fetus inside your body. That feels better than what happens. I'm telling you, if you ask my wife about it, it'll put me to my knees. It is unbelievable how painful this is. And once it gets to that point and I can't move, I start having fever, I start sweating. I turn, I think my wife said that I turned gray at one point and I wouldn't go back to normal. So it just gets really, really bad. So when that happened, I ended up going to the hospital right here in Tampa General. And I know I'm not a gunshot victim or anything, but dude, I went in there and the wife took me in and I couldn't walk. And as soon as I get in there, they're asking all these fucking questions like, hey, what's your birthday? What's your social? I'm always giving me the answers, but they're looking at me like I'm supposed to give them that information. Like I'm on the ground, screeching in pain. And, I can't move. I can't talk. I'm sure not going to give you my birthday. Here's my ID. If you can't pull it from there, we got a problem. Okay, that's all you need. I got insurance. Shut your lips. Take my shit. Take my money. So, anyway, we get in line. We get, she gets her visitor badge, all that shit. We go in this waiting room full of exceptional individuals. What a clusterfuck this group of people is. Not one person there's there for an emergency. It's the emergency room. Not one person's there. I know why you're there. I get it. You're taking advantage of the system. Kudos. Well done. But when you're ahead of me and I gotta wait, that's when it becomes an issue. If a gunshot victim came in, I'm going to go ahead and let them go in front of me first, right? That guy's more important than me, my little old Crohn's disease. But these people weren't even coughing. They're not sick. They're just there because they bumped their knee or some bullshit, right? So anyway, there's 25 people in line. Long story short, it took us 3 hours. So I'm in the lobby dying for 3 hours in that fucking lobby. It was unbelievable. And again, it's not the hospital's fault because they're just following procedure, right? There's only X amount of rooms. I mean, I get it. But, man, there definitely should be some some better, like, walk-in system than that because it was rough. And at one point, I screamed at one of the nurses, and I was like, I don't give a fuck if I'm in the hallway on a chair. Get me some fucking anti-nausea or pain medicine. Something. Because I'm heaving, I'm dying. It's coming up. Right? It ain't coming out. It's coming up. You dig? So, finally, after 3 hours, they did that. They put me in the fucking hallway. They got me a bed, though. So, not a chair, but a nice little bed. And they finally gave me some anti-nausea medicine, some painkillers. They hooked me up to an IV. Because that's what sucks about an intestinal disease. You can't take painkillers, right? Because you can't swallow anything. I can't eat anything. It'll come right back up. More importantly, though, painkillers cause even more intestinal issues like constipation. So it's definitely not the best thing for me to take when that happens. So it's not like I can pop a bunch of oxys or something and, oh, it's all better and let it marinate. You'll be fine, Tony. It's not how it works. It's a waiting game when it comes to this frickin' disease. So we finally get a room, and lo and behold, once we get the room, that's where the fun begins. Because normally it's a pretty simple process. Normally they hook me up to an IV to get me fluids, and then I rest my intestines. Well, this was pretty bad. This was rough. This time was I would say probably the worst one that I've experienced. I don't know why, but it was. And it was rough, man. It's not an easy thing. I know there's a lot more worse things out there, but it's kind of, I hate not being in control. If some of you know me, know that. And, you know, I love my wife to death because she's able to deal with me. It's weird how I'm usually the most positive person in the world, I like to think, or at least in my small group. And man, when I get to this I'm like the Hulk. You know, I'm like I'm a different person, and she handles me. She handles me well. I think she gets it by now. But it was rough. They have to put a tube in my throat, and in fact, I actually have some footage. Would you like to see it? It's pretty rough. The wife filmed it on her phone, so I'm gonna go ahead and show that if you're watching on YouTube. If you're not, I recommend you check it out. And yeah, don't watch it. If you can't handle it, it's pretty graphic. But what they do essentially is so they put the tube up my nose. There's this massive tube. It's about the length from your mouth to the bottom of your stomach, because they gotta make sure your stomach isn't getting infected. So they put a tube up your nose, yeah, just like that, and then they tell you to swallow. So it goes through your throat, and you have to swallow the tube all the way down to your stomach.
Okay.
Ugh.
Can you
Yeah.
take a sip of water?
All the way down. Takes about 35 seconds. Yeah, 35 seconds. And then the whole time you have the tube in your mouth. And it's a pretty thick tube. I mean, I'd probably say it's half the size of this pen. That thickness. So, I don't know what that would be, diameter-wise, but it's, yeah, it's pretty rough. And it's, it's not like a cozy, tube that's full of fur. I mean, it's a plastic, thick tube. It's not like a small IV, because what they do is they got to suck out everything so that we don't get infected. Same thing, if you have you go in there for too much alcohol or something like that. If you have alcohol poisoning, sometimes they'll suck out your stomach. They'll pump your stomach that way. It's definitely not a good feeling at all. So I had that in my stomach and my throat for about 6 days. So that was rough. And the whole time they're feeding you IVs. And again, the whole idea is when it comes to this, what happens with mine is when I get completely blocked up like that, the only thing I could do is wait and rest. So it could take a week, it could take a month. There's no way to tell. So it's just a waiting game. And I can't drink anything or eat anything, so they have to feed all my electrolytes and water and all that through the IV, and I just got to wait. I got to wait for the inflammation to go down. They give me anti-inflammatories and all that stuff to help the intestines kind of calm down a little bit. But that's the game you got to play when it comes to that. It's pretty rough. And I think the worst thing for me, again, is just A, not being in control. That's probably the biggest thing. But B, there's no way to get better, right? Like it's almost like you have to reset, and that's what I feel like when this type of stuff happens. That's why it's kind of discouraging, because again, for the past year and a half since the last time I had an episode, I've really worked really hard to get the physique where I'm at. I felt like I was there for a second, man, and now, like the wife always tells me, "Oh, you still look fine." Well, she has to say that, right? Like. But for me, there's a certain goal that I wanted to reach, and I feel like every time I get close to that goal, this type of stuff happens. So I did see a specialist. I had a follow-up when I got out of the hospital. And the good news is they said they don't know what it is still. I guess that's good news. I'm going to do some more CT scans, and they're going to scan my stomach and kind of check out what's going on. And potentially maybe do some surgery and cut out whatever scarring is in there in the intestine. So, we'll see. I don't know. Now, you're probably thinking, why am I telling you this? Why am I doing a podcast on this? Tony, normally it's all about saving money, your break even, funny stuff with Nova and your wife and friends, and talking about real estate with Rich, and talking about fitness with Marissa, and you're doing all these different interviews, and what's the benefit here? Well, I think the main benefit, what I wanted to do, and that's why I've been going back and forth about doing a podcast on this particular subject, is everyone has, we all have a lot of things that's wrong with us, for sure, me included. I could list 1,000 things. But I think the big thing here is we all can relate to one thing, and that is, 25 years ago, 50 years ago, we didn't have these type of diseases. It didn't exist. Now, maybe it could be because the medical research has developed and we've thought of these different names because, we're finding these large groups of people, let's say Crohn's disease, where everyone has the similar type of issue. So let's call it Crohn's disease. Everyone has a similar type of issue. Let's call it diabetes. Everyone has a similar type of issue. Let's call it something else. But this is all starting to become a new thing. All these different new diseases and new treatments and new medications and all that. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is it kind of falls into place of one of many podcasts that I do about eating right. And even though I eat right now, that isn't going to help the disease I have. I don't believe in karma at all. I believe in cause and effect, and I believe that something caused me to have this, and it wasn't what I did last week or last month or last year. It's something I did maybe 15 or 20 years ago. Maybe it was the diet that I was on when I was a kid. I mean, who knows? We're never going to know. But my point is, though, I think it's important that we really take care of ourselves. And I think as a whole, Americans have gotten in this habit, some of us anyway, of just putting anything in our body because we think our body can handle it, which is true to some extent because you see guys like Chris Farley and all these beasts, your friends that go out and can pound back 24 pints and still wake up the next day and go to work. Those are mega humans. Those people don't exist, right? They're few and far between. You, me, most of the population, we have one thing in common, and that is our bodies are extremely fragile. They're really pieces of shit if you think about it. If you compare it to everything else, we can't handle a whole lot. And I don't think we understand that. Your body builds up a tolerance to a lot of different stuff. If you have a headache and you take Advil every day, your headache's going to go away. But eventually, your body's going to adapt that painkiller that you're taking, and it's not going to be good enough anymore. And then you're going to have to up it. Then you're going to have to take more. And you don't know how your body's going to react to that. So the little things that you're putting in your body, whether it's meds, whether it's food, whether it's alcohol, whether it's weed or drugs, doesn't matter. Everything you put in your body is important, and it's gonna affect you. Cause and effect. It might not affect you today or tomorrow, but for me, it affected me 10 years later, 15 years later. I don't know. And I'm hoping I can recover from this. I'm hoping I can fix this so it doesn't happen anymore. Because it is a challenge, and I could pinpoint 10 years of my life that I treated my body like a fucking amusement park, and there's no doubt in my mind that is the reason I have this disease, 100%. It is not hereditary. Crohn's disease is not hereditary. Most diseases, just so you know, are not hereditary. Diabetes runs in my family. I don't have diabetes. It's because from age 0 to 33 where I'm at, I didn't eat the way my grandparents and everyone else ate that had diabetes. Does that make sense? It's what you do. It's cause and effect, right? So this whole thing of these different diets and all this stuff changing, I would just challenge you to be careful what you put in your body and your body alone. Don't listen to anybody else. Don't even listen to me. Don't be vegan. Don't be eat only meats. Don't eat the carnivore diet. Whatever diet, keto diet, whatever you want to do is fine, but listen to your body and find from a specialist what you should do. Because I tell you what, man, if I listened to my body 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today. And And I just hope that if you listen to this podcast and you just heard that last 2 minutes, hopefully that's enough to give you some value, because we are special, each and every one of us. And our bodies are very unique, and they're very fragile. And we got to take care of it. We got to take care of our body. So whether you're 20 or you're 30, now's the time, because I'm telling you, there's going to be a point where you're going to wake up one day and something's going to go wrong, and you're going to say, oh shit, it's because I did that thing a couple years ago. But I hope you guys got some value out of this. Thanks for listening. I know it's kind of a little bit of soft and not as exciting episode as you're used to from the Broader Podcast, but hopefully you guys got some value out of it. I appreciate you listening. I just kind of had to get this off my chest. I feel like it's hypocritical for me to be talking about health and fitness and wellness and not let you know what's going on with me, because I went so long without having any issues. I wanted to talk about this and kind of look at it as like a positive. This did happen. Cool. Now I can reset and I can figure out exactly what I got to do, and I got to put the pedal to the metal and try to fix this thing, because I don't know, a world without Tony will probably just be the same. But I know there's a lot of people that won't like that. So just like a world without you will not be the same. So again, take care of yourself, take care of your body. And thank you so much for listening, guys. I appreciate the time. And as always, if you have not already, make sure you subscribe to the Broader Podcast. It's free. Doesn't cost anything. We're available on all platforms. Apple, Google, Spotify, TuneIn, the works. So check that out at the Broader Podcast. I'll leave my Instagram and all that jazz right below the links. Be sure to check out the YouTube channel, because I am going to start videotaping every single episode. And I cannot wait for some of the people I'm going to interview coming up here in the next few weeks. So 2019 is going to be big. I know I had kind of a rough start, but man, I tell you what, there's 11 and a half more months of 2019. And I don't know about you guys, but I personally am going to fuck up 2019. It is going to be epic. It might be the best year of my life. I'm excited about it. So hope you are too. Take care of each other. Thanks again for listening, guys. I'm out.